lot of questions, why our budget has been increasing over the years, and we wanted to try and address that. We know in the handout there's a lot of information and it seems long, but we're going to have Steve go through it and kind of summarize it for you and just hit the key points.
For the record, Steve Hunt, Deputy Director of Finance. The primary drivers for the growth in the budget have been related to employee costs, both present and past employees. Collective bargaining raises, retirement contributions, and health insurance premiums, the latter two of which have just been mandated by state for additional contributions. Those have been our biggest drivers of the budget. Additionally, debt service for new capital projects, enhanced services more recently for the GET expanding into mass transit and more road resurfacing, as well as planned wastewater treatment plant expansions. And of course, as we're successful at receiving more grant monies, that actually expands the budget as well. So we're kind of a victim of our own success when it's related to the grants. Page 3. Again, the growth in the budget over the last 5 years, and I'm going to stop at fiscal 19 because fiscal 20 is a little bit different in that we have a big jump in the GET added to the budget. But if you look at the range of the growth, it's roughly been between 5 and 6% each year, year over year, 20 plus million every year since fiscal 14. Of that 123.7 million in growth, about 81% of that, and these are all funds, has been related to obligations. Again, these are just collective bargaining contracts and the increased requirements for contributions into the ERS and to our employee union trust fund, which is our retirees pension, retirees health fund. Next slide shows the breakdown of the growth in these obligations. Again, all funds on the top slide and general funds on the bottom slide. The lion's share, of course, is related to general funds. Almost $92 million of that is related in general funds. Slide 5. Again, if you look at the growth in the general fund, almost 92% of the general fund growth in the budget is related to these obligations. If you subtract out the obligations, we're really only growing at about 1% in the budget outside of the obligations. And again, this 1% growth is meant to cover just your cost of living, fuel, any kind of utility increases, contract increases to third-party, licensing agreements, just general growth of cost of doing business outside of our obligations. Again, we must pay the obligations first, so we really don't have a choice on that. They're mandated. And that kind of leads into the growth up till fiscal 20. Fiscal 20 is a little bit different in that we're now adding the GET to the budget. So fiscal 20, you see $65.85 million growth over fiscal year 19. 30.8 of that, again, is directly related to our obligations for employees and debt service. No getting around it. 32 million of that growth is for the general excise tax. We've added that revenue to the fiscal year 20 budget, majority of which is going to mass transit and capital projects related to mass transit, some of which is also being attributed to increasing our road resurfacing and other projects in highway fund and GET for our roads division. This is a summary of the grants since fiscal 15. Again, we've gone from 61.9 million up to 78.6 million. So that's almost $16.7 million in growth over that period in receiving more monies. That increases the budget, but it also increases potentially our draw on general fund because often these require matches. Even though they're state and federal grants, they're not pure gifts, they're gifts with strings, and we often have to find the money to bring in that additional money. For fiscal year 20, slide 9, I've broken down where the growth has occurred. Again, 32 million is general excise, 13.7 is in property tax, another 5.66 million in fuel tax. We're drawing a little more in fund balance this year to make the numbers work, to balance the budget. And then we're 3.1 up from fiscal 19 in terms of grants, a little more based on the sewer fees that were raised. And then we added, of course, short-term vacation rental registration to cover the cost of enforcement. And then there are various other miscellaneous fees and taxes that make up the balance. So how do the taxpayers benefit? So increasing investment in our mass transit system, more buses, routes, shelters, hubs, repaving more miles of county roads, increasing much-needed police officer presence in neighborhoods and communities, and also providing safety for our officers. It's dual edge. Not only are we providing service to our public by safety, but also to the officers themselves. And they'll be focusing on homelessness, getting them into intake centers and being out more in force to take back the lifestyle that the community really has been wanting from us. We're adding additional staff to driver's licensing and vehicle registration, 3 more clerks going in there to help reduce the lines and the wait times, and hopefully reduce some of the stress both on the public and the staff. And then we're addressing the funding some of the unfunded liabilities. Now that may not sound directly a public benefit, it's an obligation we have, but by paying it up front, we definitely save because of the cost of this in the long term by reducing the money that we have invested, which we've been eating into our corpus up until the state legislated additional contributions. So by investing now, that should be reduced in the future. And just to state what the County of Hawaii's portion of those obligations are. As of July 1st of 18, our liability was about $400 million for the UTF and about $610 million for our allocated portion of the total statewide liability for ERS.
Let me just set the parameters here so we don't go too far afield. So we have to accept this just procedurally. We have to approve. Then we're going to go into various amendments if, you know, that's the wish of this council. But if anyone wants to ask questions or make comments, generally speaking or broadly, about this draft 2, now's the time.